How did a show about a witch and her mortal husband pretending everything was normal while spells misfired, relatives popped in from alternate dimensions, and the neighbors grew increasingly suspicious, survive 8 seasons, and 2 different Darrens? Bewitched didn't just survive the 60s, it helped save ABC. At the time, ABC was stuck in 3rd place behind CBS and NBC, and the gap between the other 2 networks was widening. Then they gambled on a sitcom about a witch in the suburbs, and it was a game changer. I watched the show as a kid. Uncle Arthur was always my favorite. The scene that sticks with me is when he's sitting on the sofa and complains his feet are killing him. And then the camera pans down to 2 pistols mounted on the tips of his shoes, firing at him. Classic Uncle Arthur. But what most viewers didn't see were the reshot pilots, behind-the-scenes shakeups, health scares, bargain bin effects, and the way it all somehow held together anyway. This isn't just a history of Bewitched. It's a story of how something weird, risky, and half magical became one of TV's most unlikely success stories. But here's what you didn't learn thumbing through that TV Guide fall preview back in 1964. The bold pitch that networks weren't supposed to say yes to, the real-life problems that quietly unraveled the cast, the surprisingly low-tech visual effects that passed for magic, and the legacy. Messy, clever, and still in reruns all these years later. So if you're ready to look past the polish, let's get into what really kept Bewitched running, and what nearly didn't. In the early 1960s, television was mostly housewives, husbands, and the occasional laugh track. Think Leave It to Beaver or The Donna Reed Show. Then came Soul Sax with an idea. A witch marries a regular guy. The hook? I Love Lucy in reverse. Instead of a mortal chasing showbiz, you had a supernatural wife just trying to blend in. Sax's pilot script was sharp, funny, and attention-grabbing. Harry Ackerman at Screen Gems saw it, then passed it on to William Asher, a director who'd end up shaping the entire show, and eventually marrying Elizabeth Montgomery. Asher saw the potential right away. ABC took a gamble, and a big one. A suburban witch as the lead wasn't exactly a safe bet, but it worked. The show was actually set in Westport, Connecticut, an upscale, quiet suburb perfect for a witch trying to keep her low profile. The house itself, though, was typical Hollywood. The exterior was just a facade on the Columbia backlot in Burbank. It later showed up in Gidget, I Dream of Jeannie, and The Partridge Family. I wonder how Shirley Partridge got away with parking that tour bus in the driveway without Gladys Kravitz throwing a fit. The original Bewitched pilot was partially reshot before airing. Several supporting roles were recast, including Agnes Moorehead as Endora, and a few key scenes were reworked. Call it some pre-broadcast spell work. The show painted a perfect picture suburban fantasy, but off-screen, the lives of the Bewitched cast were far from perfect. Perhaps the most well-known struggle was that of Dick York, who played the original Darren Stevens. York suffered a debilitating back injury years before Bewitched, an accident on the set of the film They Came to Codora in 1959. By the time Bewitched was filming, his pain was excruciating. He pushed through with strong medication, but in 1969, during the episode Daddy Comes to Visit, he collapsed on set and was hospitalized. William Asher visited him shortly after, and when asked what he wanted to do, York simply said, "If it's okay, I think I'm going to quit." Asher agreed, and just like that, York's run as Darren was over. The show carried on with Dick Sargent in the role, a rare move at the time, replacing a lead mid-series. Sargent did his best, but many fans felt the chemistry was never the same. And here's another layer to the drama. Agnes Moorehead, who played Endora, was actually close friends with Dick York off-screen. Their characters clashed on set constantly, but in real life, they got along well. When York left, Moorehead was reportedly quite upset. And some say her coldness towards Dick Sargent wasn't personal. She just missed her friend. And the dynamic between Endora and the new Darren never quite clicked. Then there was Elizabeth Montgomery. On screen, she made it all look easy. Off screen, however, things were messier. Her marriage to director William Asher was tied closely to the show's success, but the stress of production and Asher's infidelity took a toll. They divorced shortly after Bewitched ended in 1972. Samantha's family, especially her more eccentric relatives, were often the real source of chaos and comedy. Take Uncle Arthur, played by Paul Lynde. His snark, timing, and barely disguised mischief made him one of the show's most memorable characters. Lynde wasn't just funny, he was unpredictable. Paul Lynde largely improvised his lines as Uncle Arthur. He was usually given a loose outline for a scene, but he pretty much winged it from there. His deadpan reactions to Darren's growing frustration were so sharp, other actors sometimes had trouble keeping a straight face. Paul Lynde actually appeared on Bewitched before he ever played Uncle Arthur. In season 1, he showed up as a nervous driving instructor named Harold. No, really. That was his name. His appearance was such a hit that a year later, he returned as Samantha's mischievous uncle and stole every scene from there on out. Then there's Aunt Clara, endearing, bumbling, and usually one spell away from disaster, played by Marion Lorne. She was known for magical mishaps like conjuring up Abraham Lincoln or getting stuck in a chimney. What you saw on screen wasn't far off. Lorne had trouble remembering her lines and often brought her personal collection of antique doorknobs to set, a real-life quirk that ended up written into the show. And let's not forget Serena, Samantha's mischievous cousin, played by Elizabeth Montgomery in a black wig in a completely different mood. Serena was loud, rebellious, and always up for some magical shenanigans. Montgomery enjoyed the role so much, she was often uncredited, sometimes using the name Pandora Spox. It was a sly alias, a play on Pandora's box, the mythical source of chaos, which fit Serena to a T. The character let Montgomery channel her wild side without breaking the illusion of Samantha. In an era long before CGI, Bewitched had to get creative with its magic. That signature nose twitch? No camera trick there. Elizabeth Montgomery actually twitched her nose and upper lip at the same time, a skill she picked up as a kid. Nothing digital, just muscle control and a good close-up. For objects disappearing or reappearing, Bewitched relied on jump cuts or stop-motion tricks. Pause the camera, swap the item, and then roll again. When Samantha or Endora vanished into thin air, it was usually a quick cut or a double exposure. Levitation was handled with wires, hidden platforms, or the occasional trampoline for those light, magical bounces. No CGI, just timing, editing, and whatever the crew had lying around. The iconic theme song originally had lyrics. ABC wisely decided to go with the music-only version after hearing it. That wasn't the only smart decision they made. By season 8, Bewitched was running on fumes. Scripts were recycled, sometimes almost word for word, and fans noticed. Elizabeth Montgomery wasn't thrilled with where the show was going. Her marriage to William Asher was unraveling, and the work no longer felt magical. So when ABC asked about a 9th season, it was no bueno for Montgomery. The network briefly considered continuing without her, but wisely realized Bewitched without Samantha would have been like The Captain without Tennille. From its strange beginning to its slow fade-out, Bewitched wasn't just a fantasy sitcom. It was a product of its time, a show built on charm, smart casting, and some genuinely clever tricks. The cast dealt with real-life problems. The crew solved effects challenges on set with tape and timing, and somehow it all came together. Decades later, we're still stepping into the Stevens living room, not because of the magic, but because of the people behind it.